Hello and welcome to the Indian Sun. I'm Indira Lycerum. I'm joined tonight by my three lovely guests, Artie Vincent, Crew Harale, and James G. Warren, who call themselves the amazing Cannonball Flower, TACF. And they are performing at the ongoing Melbourne Fringe Festival. You can go online, buy tickets, and watch them. However, tonight we're going to talk about what ticks their funny bones and what they're presenting at the Fringe Festival. And to begin my session, some intel to all my audience. Please feel free to post some questions in our chat too. But let me introduce my guest before. I have Artie Vincent. Artie went to audition for an all-white show within few months of her arriving in Melbourne because she believes that talent outshines ethnicity. She has been called a great storyteller, weaving live events and experiences into her stand-up comedians. Crew Harare, Crew short for Kritika, has a vivacious energy that crackles from routine, and she describes her perspective about Indians, Australia, sex, and more. Laugh Masters Academy says she's a legend in the making. James Warren is a Tassie who delivers mail for a living and performs for the love of it. He is a connoisseur of comedy, good friends, and broccoli. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for coming to our show. I'm going to start with a question for all the three of you. I love your team makeup. Two Indians, one white boy. You've ticked the diversity box. How did the collaboration come, and did you sort of, fit in naturally with each other? And how do you share the glory more importantly? Aarti, you can start.
So this is how it came along. I was bitten by the acting bug. I always wanted to act. So that's how I started doing stand-up comedy because I was like, I have to act, and that was easy, write your own thing, perform, done. And that's how I met James because when I was doing my comedy festival show, James and I were sharing the venue and we started talking and James like, oh, I'm from acting background. And I just said, as a passing comment, but I meant it somewhere deep down. I was like, oh, do you want to do a show with me? Do a log with me? And he said, yes. I said, okay, then I'll get in touch with you. And we forgot about it. Then crew came and watched my show, last show, and I was on a show high. And I just asked her, I said, and I don't know them very well at all at that time. So I'm like, do you want to do a duologue with me? She said, yes. And I'm like, okay. So then I was like, okay, now I need to make both of them meet and introduce them. And that's how we just started. And I was just talking to James and I was like, Joe, we just joked. James, you're ticking the diversity box here. You know that, it was just a joke. Yeah, and that's how we came together. Yeah.
Yeah. She was
Yeah.
basically two-timing both of us, if you realize.
Yeah.
And you, did you get bullied by the two girls? I mean, sorry, James, did you get bullied by the two girls?
No, I can't say bullied. Bullied is a very strong word. But they've guided me very well, and we fit together so well. I can't imagine this group without any one of us. If you subtracted any one of us, it wouldn't be the same at all.
Yeah, we always speak about how serendipitous this has been. Like we meeting each other and then all our strengths are very different, but they just fit nicely. And we all, if I can safely say, we all get along. We've had so many walks and lunches and it's
Yeah.
been great. And we've spent so much time together and we're still not sick of it. So I guess that's something.
Okay. Yeah. And just before I start, talking about the fun things in art and craft and others, I just wanted to know whether, the current, the pandemic, how it has affected your work and, and this new online forums that you have now, has it sort of added more viewers to your work?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
an interesting question, especially because all three of us have families abroad. We almost looked at the lockdown as a blessing in disguise because we're like, we have more exposure of this fringe show to go places. So yes, we can complain about, yeah, we miss live performances, but there's pros and cons to both these platforms. And comedy is comedy in the end of the day. If you're still getting to be creative, whether on stage or off, it's still
Mm.
fun. What do you guys think?
No, I totally agree with Crew. Absolutely. I think what pandemic has done with, particularly with my take on it, is that it has widened our horizons. Like, we would have never thought of doing a digital show. We would have never thought of doing Zoom open mics. Never, ever in the wildest of our imaginations. But
Mm.
pandemic forced us to do things like this and said, oh, this is also possible. you know what else is possible, kind of an attitude. So that's, I think I
Hmm.
totally agree with you.
James?
Yeah, for sure. We've been able to reach people that we otherwise wouldn't have reached. And it's given us something to work on while we're locked down. There's not much to do. You can't go places. You can't. There's a huge list of things you can't do, but you've got to focus on the things that you can do. And we were able to learn our lines and give each other notes and rehearse over Zoom. And it's been a really great thing to focus on for the last few months. And it's great to be able to put out a piece of work, even despite the pandemic. So it's been a really constructive and positive thing for us.
Let's talk about the Fringe Festival. Is that one of your major online gigs of the year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, for me.
Okay.
Yes, for me. Yeah.
Okay. I watched it and I thought it was really fun, Aarti, could you please do the joke on Bitcoin and Good Friday without giving much away for the audience? Let them watch, but you can just give them a bit of a teaser.
Okay, so I can do. Do you want the Bitcoin one?
I just love that. The other two, both of them, the Bitcoin and the Good Friday.
Okay, I'll do the Good Friday first.
Yeah,
So this is
yeah.
okay, you know how people of color can get very offended when white people don't get their culture right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they wish them accidentally Merry Christmas. Blasphemy, for some. I get it. I absolutely get it. And I'm with white people on this one, absolutely wholeheartedly, because I'm a Hindu married to a Catholic, and both the families have done amazingly well to embrace each other's cultures. And, for example, my mom called me up first thing, our first Easter after our marriage, first thing on a Good Friday morning. Happy Good Friday. I was like, have you already called up my in laws and wished them? No, 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 no. I thought I will call you first, na? Explained her the whole significance of Good Friday, Easter Sunday. Very good. You told me that. Now I will call them up and I will say, so sorry to hear about Good Friday. So that's my Good Friday joke, which I think Crew and James have heard 100 times.
It's still funny.
We
Still
still
funny.
laugh at it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I actually watched it over and over again because I really loved it, and I thought like, oh my God, she has a repository of material because of your background and where you come from, and I'm sure that's the same for Crew because you're from India as well, you're from Delhi, and I was thinking, not that James has a disadvantage, but I was thinking because of the two of you. And the fact that you come from India, India is a repository of stories and and material, isn't it? James, in that sense, where do you find material, from?
Well, not in India, unfortunately. I wish I could. I'd love to go and see India, but material is everywhere. I think it's just about the way you look at the world. So it's
Yeah,
not so much about what is going on because there's things going on all the time. It's just how you look at it.
yeah. And James, I also want to know the one. I find it so interesting that you were delivering mails, and how did this switch happen? Suddenly, how did you turn to comedy? Did you think this is? I want to make fun of people now.
I started with comedy, and then I needed something to do during the day, and delivering mails are very convenient. day job to have during the day, and I can do comedy at night.
Mm. How is the comedy scene in Tasmania? Are you still in Tasmania or have you moved to Melbourne?
I've moved to Melbourne. I've been in for a few years now, and the comedy scene in Tasmania is surprisingly strong. I'd say you've got um, a comedy boom happening all over the world right now. You know, in India, I've heard a lot of about the Indian scene. Little
Mm.
pockets of the world like Tasmania that you wouldn't expect. We can do our own scenes, and it's very supportive and encouraging. And we've got a lot of good comedians down there.
Mm. Crew, I'm going to come to you next. And I should tell people that crew is the short form of Krutika, not kombucha.
I get it. I get
I just,
all that.
yeah, I know. I love that part in the Melbourne Fringe Festival section where you have the art of seduction, right?
Yeah.
There's that part where you particularly talk and you say that the sex is funny and Indians have sex. I know that's a comedian's very what you call delicate art of addressing issues. Now I'm wondering if you believe in the aspect of messaging in comedy, or do you just look at your craft as a form of entertainment only?
I think it's a bit of both. I love talking about that. I always believe in comedy with a message because I want to ideally leave my audience members thinking, yeah, that was funny. I'm in a good mood now, but also thought provoking. It was like, oh, yeah, Indians do have a lot of sex. No, I'm joking.
Mhm.
So I want them to leave thinking something about the show, whether it's, thought provoking message given very slightly. Like there's a joke that I crack about. There was a pigeon on the train, and then I say men go into places they don't belong, and then I say me coo, which is like a joke on the me too. So it's still funny, but it's touching a subject that we all avoid. So you know I like comedy with a message, hands down.
Does others feel the same as well? Aarti?
Uh, I don't I don't have messages as such.
Hmm.
For me, messages, if they come along, they come along good. For me, it's about laughs. Like it's about like personally, I feel like I'm happy to make people laugh. That's it. If there's no message, it's okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like it's just I've never consciously thought about that.
Hmm. James, I was looking at at your show at the Fringe Festival, and I know you copped a lot, quite a bit. Aarti made fun of the name George. Now, the two of them, of course, combined. The interview section. Do you believe in woman power?
Pardon, can you ask that again?
I said, there's a section where you get copped a lot, you made fun of because of the name George, and it's clearly a, show where, the women are dominating you. So, do you believe in woman power?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's clear to see. I've been working with women very closely for the last few months, and they're just really really powerful. They've got that's what you asked. Do I believe in women power? Absolutely. There's so much power and experience. I mean, also I'm a bit younger than Artie and crew, so they've got so much experience and so many skills that they've developed over the course of their careers, and it's amazing to see them bring it all together. So, and not just them, all women have something to offer.
Hmm. Let's talk a bit about the Fringe Festival and what do you think is unique about your show? Anyone can talk.
What I think really, oh,
What
go
stands?
on,
What makes you stand out from the rest?
because we've tried everything.
Hmm.
Put it on the table. It's like you
Yeah.
want acting, you want comedy, you want serious
Let's
drama,
share.
heartwarming. We've tried all of it so in one show. So I would
That
say, yeah, that's something we're offering. Different moods, different. We'll take you on a journey and an emotional journey in 60 minutes, and I think that's hard to do well. I don't claim that we've done it well. I claim that we've attempted it, and I hope you guys like it. That What do you guys think, James and Artie?
Yeah,
Yeah.
same here. Like, yeah. Like, the art of seduction was really something that it's not really comedy. It's really something we tried out of our comfort zone. And Fringe is a platform where you try something new and you see how is it working. And you then, it's like and then if it's not working, you drop it. If it's working, you make it. So basically, Fringe is a great platform to do that. No, James?
Yeah, absolutely. This is our debut, so and what's exciting about debuts is often people will give exactly what they have to offer, as much as they can offer right off the bat, right, as soon as they can. So yeah, we've just thrown everything at it. We're not here just to do another show for the sake of doing another show. We're here to put out something new and fun and do comedy the way we think that it should be done. And it's been great fun doing it.
Yeah. No, no, I thoroughly enjoy it. I'm sure you've had great reviews.
We will. They're
Coming
coming
through.
in. Coming through.
No, but what are some of the feedbacks that you've got from at least your your peers or your friends?
Oh, so
They've
many of them
loved
are. Yeah, everybody
Yeah,
is just so charming.
I
yeah.
want to ask, yeah.
We haven't gotten a professional review yet, but our peers, most of them have loved it, and which is something very great. Like I'm actually very stoked about it, to be honest.
I loved it. I loved it. I mean, I thought right from the word go till the end, I thought each of you did your part beautifully. Okay, my next question is how I'm sure you guys miss live gigs, of course, and you would be looking forward to it. And what is the thrill that you get from a live gig and versus the online performance? And that's a very state question, but I would just like to know because we don't know how long the pandemic is going to carry on.
I miss the unpredictability. I miss the crowd work. I think the audience really gives me energy when I get on stage. So it's both ways. It's like you're
Mm,
telling them jokes, but they're also responding, and there's a different
mm,
joy. You'll
mm.
see in our show, we do have laughs, but
Yeah.
you can
Mm,
guess if they're real or not.
mm,
um, I miss audience, talking to the audience and feeding off them.
mm,
Yeah, the audience always brings their own energy,
mm,
and it can make an ordinary show extraordinary with an audience there. So
mm,
we love audiences, and it's all about connection.
mm.
It's great to do it just for the sake of us, but to know that it connects, and you can really see that on people's faces when they're in the venue
Mm, mm.
experiencing it with you. And audiences are funny as well, so we miss you.
Yeah,
Mm.
we miss you.
No, true. Remember when you came for the show, Indra, for the
I
and no, I did
know,
not.
I know,
You
and that was such an intimate, nice place, and it was jam packed, and you sort of had that one-to-one interaction, and you could connect with people. You could look at their faces and talk, unlike a big stadium like thing. And I think that I think in your comedy shows, I think one of the best part is the intimacy of a small, compact audience who really enjoy comedy and who really understand what is going on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Please
yeah,
tell me.
exactly.
Please go on. You were saying something.
No, no, no. I was just saying exactly the same thing. Exactly what you said. Like remember when you came and I had never met you, and I've still
I
not
know.
met you. Like after
I
that,
know. We
but
did promise
like
to catch up.
but we did connect. The feeling that, oh, I emailed this girl Indra. Now she came to watch the show, and now I'm talking to her, and that connection that you have after the audience has watched also is also amazing. Talking to them, that connection, that we humans are all about. I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's very important. Okay, my next question to each one of you. Now we're going to talk. Is laughter a good weapon?
A
Oh,
weapon.
weapon.
Or I also give you an option. Is laughter the best medicine?
Can it be both?
Mm.
Now,
The
choose.
medicine
I
and
I'm,
the
I'm
laughter.
giving you.
think
I'm
yes.
a very what you call very easy interview. I'm giving you two options.
I think yes. In a case of weapon, when you're in a situation which is a bit tense and you crack a joke, people laugh, and suddenly you will see the whole meeting room or whole situation has the tension just disappears. So I think absolutely yes. If you can make fun of the situation, if you can make fun of yourself in the situation, if you can look it from that eye and don't take things so seriously, I think it's a great weapon.
Yeah, for
True.
sure.
Oh, sorry, James.
It, I think, yeah, it definitely depends what your intention is
Mm.
as the comedian. You whether you want it to be a weapon or a medicine is really up to you. Um, with the upside down world sketch, we're using comedy as a kind of a weapon to or a remedy to people's perceptions, and we're going inside your own and behind behind enemy lines, you could say.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree. I think it depends on the situation. So I would almost say the weapon gives you relief, so it's a medicine too. So, because you're going to talk about touchy subjects like Me
Mm.
Too or sexism and racism in the upside down world, but at the same time, we're making you laugh, so you're relieved. So I think it's both in a way.
Yeah. For me, I find it a great leveler in my life, and especially during the pandemic. We need humor and and positivity. Okay, my next question is for Crew and Arti. Uh, Given that sorry, I'm harping on this a bit. Given that you come from India and you're here, what culture do you most identify it, and how do you find that culture influencing in your work?
Adi, you can go first. Because I'm
Sorry?
going to say I'm uncultured altogether.
I have to, I have to admit something here. Like
Yeah.
culturally, I think I'm not saying it to be like a, oh my God, but culturally, I identify myself as a human being because even when I was in India, I was a total misfit. People used to tell me "Angrez ki aulad." Do you know what that means?
James,
Angrez
that
chal
means
chhod ke.
the kid of the English.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
because my attitude was very different in India, and here also I came with the same attitude. Well, I'm not a misfit here at all, but I just identify myself as human, and that's why I went for that audition for a bloody British play, you know, thinking that I'll get the role. So so
I know.
culturally, I think I identify as myself as human, and I don't know, like I find myself I can fit in anywhere, which is kind of good.
Mm.
But yes, in India, I was definitely called, like Angrez ki aulad kind of thing, like she's kind of, like where is she from? Where is she from? People used to wonder, where are you from? Yeah,
Yeah. I know. I can imagine the
yeah.
unconventional. What do you call?
Indian girl.
I would call it this or the sultry Savitri.
Oh,
Sultry
yeah.
Savitri.
James, that
That's
means
That
what
should
a
be the
very
word.
obedient
That should
woman.
be the word. Yeah.
Right.
totally.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
me too. I think culturally, for your question, I identify being global. Like so far, at least nobody's proven that I'm an alien, so I'm just gonna say I belong to the planet rather than defining boundaries of India and Australia or America or whatever. Because, like Adi said, in India, people think I am not Indian, and here people think I am Indian. So it's like I don't care anymore. I feel if I had to really identify or stereotype myself, I would call myself a very typically creative person. I'm in my la la land, doing my thing, mentally just staring into space. I mean, that's where all the jokes come from anyway. So, if I had to stereotype or identify in a culture, it would be the creative, hardcore creative culture. But no, not so much like country. I find that very limiting, to be honest. So I would never define myself like that.
Yeah, and that's really good to hear because culture. I mean, identity is such a fluid thing in today's world and time, and especially for people who have chosen to immigrate and live in other countries. And we can't be defined by notions of certain geographical boundaries or whatever. James, uh, do you find these two women culturally shocking?
That's a great question, Indra. Love that question.
It is a great question. It is a great
Very
question.
clever.
Oh my God.
I
I
have
want to hear
learned a
James
lot.
give an elaborate answer.
I have learned a lot about India from Crew and Aarti. And there are a few things like it was Crew's birthday the other day, and we were cutting the cake, and I said, "Don't touch the bottom with the knife." If the birthday girl, because in my from where I grew up, if the bottom of the knife touches the bottom of the plate when you're cutting the cake on your birthday, you will have green babies. And we say that don't touch the bottom, or you'll get green babies. And they had no
Oh,
idea. It's there's a few different things like that, but ultimately we connect on the level that we are human beings and we're creatives and we love doing comedy and making art. So I have learned a lot along the way, and there are some differences, but they really don't matter, and they don't surprise me either. There's there's so much new to learn that it doesn't surprise me when I learn something new.
hmm.
Can I just tell you, Indra, just fun
Yeah.
fact, every time we've met, we've had a lot of Indian food. So, and for some reason, James has always liked that Indian food. So I can definitely say, whether culture or not, he's eaten a lot of Indian food so far.
But being in Australia, James would definitely have had butter chicken and Rogan Josh. No, James?
Oh, he's
Yeah,
vegetarian. Oh,
yeah,
So
yeah.
he would have had his, initiation, what you call, what, a process with butter chicken and Rogan Josh,
Yeah.
which would be sweet.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you guys a question. I really want you guys to answer it elaborately. Have you had any embarrassing moments on stage? You have to be candid. Now you have to be candid. You'll get lots of audience for this.
Mm.
embarrassing.
You know what's
Not
funny is that it kind of happens in hindsight. When
Hmm.
I look back at my old performances when I was just starting out, I get quite embarrassed at them. And some of them were quite embarrassing at the time. I mean, you do enough shows. If you do, say, 1,000 shows, you're not going to be the greatest comedian in the world every single one of those shows. There's going to be at least 500. Maybe that's a bit generous. There's going to be a lot of bombs, a lot of bad performances, but really you just get used to it. And once you realize that you can be embarrassed and then live through that, you feel invincible. So you're embarrassed if you're doing gigs regularly every week, but it's not so much about that as about how much you keep going.
I
That's what I
agree.
think.
I think we did. I haven't been doing comedy for a long time. So one of my first festival shows was this Melbourne Festival this year, and there were like 5 people in the audience. And there were 3 comedians on stage, so it was barely, the same amount of people on stage and off stage. But it was my first time not hearing a laugh after I crack a joke. And it was so new for me. And I was like, oh my God, is this real? And that happened because we had a couple of shows. So on weeknights, sometimes people didn't come and they came on weekends. So I lived through it and I died inside. So I got thick skin. And now I'm like, I don't care. But I think, like James says, you grow up during
Hmm.
that bomb process. So
Hmm.
even the embarrassing ones or so-called ones are not embarrassing anymore because it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, like the other day, if I had to choose one, the other day I like to do crowd work in my set,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
there was a guy constantly talking. So I stopped doing my set and I started talking to him and wasting my in my 5 minutes. I'm like wasting 1 minute just talking to a random person. So if I could go back, I'd be like, nah, I wouldn't do that. I'd just keep going. So
Yeah.
that would have been technically embarrassing. But you know what? It's a learning process. And I got a joke out of it because people like on the spot stuff. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I went on a tangent there, but I would say no embarrassing stuff because everything's a learning curve.
Yeah, but that's all right. Aarti?
Uh, to be very honest, I don't think I've had an embarrassing moment, but yes,
Hmm.
there are moments, when you are doing your set and just in front of you, there's a man who's pissed, drunk, pissed out of his head, and he wants to talk over you. So
Hmm.
once I had that moment, and it was my first time encountering that kind of a situation, and I did tell him to shut up and blah
Hmm.
blah blah. But I think after in hindsight, I think I would have dealt it differently today. Like
Hmm.
I would have made it funnier and more this thing. Like today, I would have completely dealt with it differently. I remember that night I came back home and I was like, oh, so this thing. But now I don't. These things don't bother at all.
Hmm.
But definitely, I would have dealt with it differently. So yeah, these are the things. But they're all learning curves, like James and Crew said, and you learn
Yeah.
and you grow and evolve.
Yeah.
I almost think because it's the comedy industry, the more embarrassing, the funnier you are. Like if it
Yeah.
was like a
Yeah.
serious drama recital and you forgot your line, yeah, that's embarrassing. But here, if you say, "Oh, I've forgotten my next joke," they actually laugh. So it's kind
Yeah.
of good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose the fact that I mean, there is nothing called perfection. So I think
Yeah,
the beauty is that sometimes the imperfections and the embarrassments make it even more funnier and
it does.
and nice.
Sometimes when your joke doesn't land and you say, "Oh, that
Yeah,
didn't work," and that
Yeah.
gets you a
yeah,
laugh.
yeah,
That your joke didn't work and you acknowledged it, and like
yeah,
people go, "Ha, that's funny, so funny."
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so I had another question. I know
yeah.
my questions are starting to sound very philosophical.
I'm
We're
But
loving your
loving it. We're
question.
loving it.
Yeah, I love it
okay,
too.
so unless you entertain us with jokes, okay, but sorry, okay, I'm going to ask you this question now. I know we live in very politically correct times, woke era. So, I mean, do you sort of think, yeah, that telling jokes, offend people, but do you feel that you have to draw a line somewhere? Do you feel constrained by these pressures of the work atmosphere?
Um,
Mm,
I think it's
look,
important to not be
What did you think?
scared.
It was a philosophical question.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do my question was, what do you think about in offense in jokes? That was the question. I need to put it
Hmm.
brusquely.
see if you are not going through something, for example, I wouldn't crack a joke about a mental health problem or a
Hmm.
mental illness,
Hmm. Hmm.
or person with mental disability or physical disability.
Hmm.
But having said that, if you have a close connection with that situation, you can crack a joke.
Hmm.
That, like, I can easily crack jokes about people of color easily. Like, I can hit below the belt, above the belt, wherever,
Hmm.
because I am that and people wouldn't get offended. But if I was white, cracking jokes on person of color would be like people would cringe these days. Earlier, people would laugh.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, in a way, it's good and bad both.
Hmm.
Good because there were times when it was kind of not okay to say certain things
Hmm.
if you're not associating with it,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
bad because sometimes people get a bit too touchy feely and you're like,
Hmm.
that's like taking your freedom away. So
Hmm.
it has its pros and cons, yeah. But
Hmm.
I would be careful what I talk about. Like if I'm not associating with it, I wouldn't crack that joke.
Hmm. Just to refine my question a bit more, I was just talking about the constraints, that is,
Hmm.
we sort of have because of the political correctness and the woke culture. Yeah, so James and crew, if you can sort of elaborate or have your point of views.
I think if you're a comedian and you're focusing too much on what's constraining you, I think you're
Yeah,
focusing on the wrong thing. You should
yeah,
be focusing on what you can do, because there's still
yeah.
so much you can do. If you take away, a couple of topics, that just forces you to be more original, and I think that's a good thing for comedy. If the goalposts shift and the ground shifts from under you, it's everyone's responsibility, comedian or not, to be aware of that and to adapt to it and change with it, and to go for some more original things. So I think in that way the constraints are good for comedy, but it's just about the way you think about it. And obviously Dave Chappelle's special came out recently, and I think he's catering to a certain audience that still likes that kind of old kind of joke, but
Mm,
so it still exists. The audience
mm.
is free to decide, but the general trend seems to be that the audience is deciding to be more. You can call it woke. I call it
Mm.
just more maybe left leaning, more progressive. That's what I think.
Crew?
I think at the end of the day, you want to
Mm.
have a good time. Everybody needs to leave the show feeling good about themselves. So whether that means you are not going to make fun of things you
Mm.
shouldn't be making fun of, you will not. Like if you're a good person, you're not going to make fun of transgenders or lesbians or gays or straights or whites or browns or whatever. Everybody, like I would say offensive. Why go there? Like, why go to a level where you're teasing someone or making fun of things that is not right anyway? I truly believe that if you look for good and truth, funny takes care of itself. So you got to just find that spot. And I'm weirdly and stupidly idealistic, so I like to do that. Also, I don't care about the constraints because half my material I'm just making fun of myself, which
Mm.
works because then I don't have to research. It's just my own life telling people about it, like how funny this is. Um, which works because then I can still make comments about Me Too or whatever lightly.
Mm.
But at the same time, again, the message is always having a good time. They're all here to have fun.
And I suppose comedy really cannot have boundaries because at the end of the day, you are making light of a situation instead of taking it seriously. And I think offense is, what should I say, is a very individual response, I think, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. So anyway, okay. So I had another question, which is for all three of you again, because I really want to know your point of views. Do you think comedy can empower people and it can change people's way of thinking?
Oh, absolutely. Um,
Absolutely.
I definitely think that. So I'll give you an example from me. Sorry, I'm just jumping in.
Go for it.
Um, the stereotype of Indians
Hmm.
abroad, like out of India, is like, oh, Indians have big families, or Indians are poor and stuff like
They
that.
smell of curries.
Yeah, they like curries. They know how to cook curries. Now, I might be the only exception on planet Earth, and maybe the Indian viewers are gonna kill me later. But the thing is, I did grow up with servants. So when I moved to New York, that was my first country. I did feel like oh, I have to cook and clean, and all of that. And I'm not sounding like a brat, but in India, middle class also have help. So I had a joke back in Sydney that when I was growing up, I had first world problems in third world countries. And so I sort of like breaking that stereotype that, yes, I am older, but my mom's not looking for boys for me. Or I don't know how to cook. I can feed myself, but I don't know how to cook curry. I cannot eat too much spicy food. And it's all this stereotypes. Okay, my family, yes, it was big, but now they had feuds and nobody talks to each other. So the whole stereotype about Indians, I like to break that. And so when you say, wait, what was your question again? I know I'm going there,
About
but
empowerment.
yes, empowerment. So I
Empower.
think that yeah, does comedy have a power to change their way of thinking? I have had a lot of non-Indian audiences come back to me and say, "Oh yeah, I didn't realize, you know." And I'm like, "Good, now you do." So now every time you meet a new Indian, don't go
Mm.
like, "I love butter chicken." Talk about something else. Talk about what are your hobbies, because maybe they don't love butter chicken. So
Yeah.
you know, yeah, I definitely think. What do you guys think, James and Adi?
James, give it his point. I think Arthi's turn to talk.
Is Artie
No,
not here?
Arthi is not zone off.
no, no, no. I was listening to Prue. I was really listening to Prue. That was very interesting.
Oh
No,
my
like,
god.
of course, comedy can empower you. No, like, I was just thinking,
You want me to repeat
because,
the question?
no, I know the question.
We write the question in the private chat. See what it.
Yeah. Okay,
No,
I
I
think I have
know.
a question. Okay, guys, after you finish your answer, Arti, I'm so glad there's some questions for you. Okay,
Okay. So,
from
no,
the
Uh-huh.
chat box.
comedy can empower you in a way that, when you tell your
Yeah,
story, and
yeah.
suppose someone's story is like struggling with mental health, or struggling with motherhood or whatever,
Yeah.
but they make fun of it and people
Mm,
relate to it, they go back laughing. They stop delving into their own tragedy, their own, like misery. They're
Mm.
like, oh, that is actually so funny. And I think in that way, it's very empowering. When you tell your own story, your own struggles, people
mm,
relate to it. People can laugh about their own struggles then, and that
mm,
empowers them. So that is a very great thing about comedy, I think.
mm.
Mm.
Okay, ready, guys? I have a question from the audience, and this one is from Andre. His question is, for stand up comedy to work in Australia, you got to swear and be dirty. Clean comedy never makes it here. Is that true? I'll probably direct the question to James.
Well,
I saved you two girls. Yeah.
I'll try and answer that because when I started going to comedy, I was 17 years old and I wasn't allowed in bars by myself, and so I had to. My mum came with me for a year to every gig that I did, and she was in the audience. So that kind of right from the get go, I was quite clean because I didn't want to be swearing in front of my mum every week, and that made me a quite clean comic to begin with. And it's fine. It's fine. As funny is the number one rule. We always say there's no rules, there's no boundaries in comedy. The only thing that is necessary is to be funny, and I think it's definitely possible to do that without swearing, and it'll stand out, which is another very important thing about comedy. So I think it is absolutely possible to be clean and successful in Australia.
Hmm. This is another question from Priya, and she asks, "What are you guys looking forward to once Melbourne opens up?" So each of you can take turns to answer. That saves me asking you questions.
Live comedy, I think live in-person comedy, that's what we are looking forward to. Holding
Yeah,
that mic in your hand and yeah.
yeah, definitely. I think comedy related, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing audience faces smiling back at me while I'm talking to them.
Mm.
It would, I miss that, and I'm definitely looking forward to that.
And I'm
All
looking
right.
forward to getting out of Melbourne. As much as I love Melbourne, once Melbourne opens up, I can leave Melbourne for a bit, which will be nice.
Yeah, I know. I think that's what everyone is looking forward to. And I think we sort of, kind of had a very good session. But I was thinking if any one of you had any good joke to share with before we part.
Well, I think Binoy just said, "Can you crack a joke for us?" And I was gonna be
Yes,
cheeky
yes,
and say,
yes. We saw
I
that.
was, I
Yeah.
was
So,
actually
yeah,
gonna
Binoy and Binoy, this is Binoy, but I think we both think alike. See, before I even looked at the chat, I had this question.
So
All
I
right.
wanted to be cheeky and tell Binoy we will crack a joke, but for that you have to go to our show because we have 1 hour jokes for you there. Uh,
Yeah. Aarti?
Oh, I've already cracked. You want me to crack a joke again?
Yeah.
James, you can take this one. You
You
can
can
part
be,
us.
I think you can be generous. Don't, as they say in Hindi, don't be
I'll,
conjugal.
I'll be generous. Which one should I crack? I'm just thinking. Okay, you know what? I'll crack this one, this joke. So it's
Yeah.
not kind of a joke, but it's true story. It'll weave in that question about clean comedy. So when I
Mm,
started doing comedy, I
mm,
had already embarked on my spiritual journey, and with awareness. And I was
mm,
very very serious about that. I no f words, nothing, And I was
mm.
like, and the first thought that crossed my mind was like, what the fuck am I gonna write about? you know that's
Yeah.
exactly what I thought. Oh my god, so because that's how my language used to be. Like f word used to be my everything, like punctuation, full stop, comma, exclamation, everything. Like one sentence would have at least three f words. So that's my funny story. In fact, I stopped swearing when I was pregnant. When I felt pregnant, I was like, how in Indian culture they say, oh, you should mind your language because your child can hear everything. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want my child to hear all the dirty words I use, fuck, dickhead, everything that I use. I'm like, okay. So I had to control my language. So that's not a joke, but it's a funny story and it brings in that thing. Yeah. For
Mm.
jokes, please watch
Yeah.
our show. The
Yeah.
Yeah,
amazing
please
Cannonball
watch
We're going
it.
Flower.
to, yeah, I'll make a special appeal on that at the end. But James, did you have any joke to share or?
Oh, sorry,
That's
I'm
all right.
drawing a complete blank.
That's all right. Otherwise, you can answer a last question for me. What has been your biggest takeaway from the lockdown? And do you think these ideas for virtual comedy shows in the future, will continue as they are? Hope not. But what's been your biggest takeaway from the lockdown?
Be creative no matter what. Because without the cannonball flower, I would go effing crazy. I don't know if I can swear here, but really, I am so grateful for this group because it kept us writing new material, acting. So lockdown or no lockdown, I think being creative was my takeaway. That keeping that thing alive, feeding my soul all the
Mhm.
time.
Hmm.
I think the same. It's
Hmm.
all about what you choose to focus on. You can
Hmm.
you can watch the news every day and look at the case numbers go up, or you can figure out what you can do for yourself and go and do it.
Hmm. I think I'm not
Yes.
ready to. Yeah, sorry. Go
No,
on,
no, no,
please.
same. So
No,
same, same,
I
same.
think, I think I'm not ready to let you go yet because when she talked about the amazing cannonball flower, I just remembered I had a question when I looked at it when you sent me the press release. I was like, so in the team, who's the amazing, who's the cannonball, and who's the flower?
Oh, that's such a good question. Where do you come up with these questions in
That's a
there?
great question.
I'm so good.
Nobody's
That's
ever
a
asked.
great
Because you call
question.
yourself the great, amazing cannonball flower. So I was
You
like,
know,
who is amazing in the team?
I have to kudos to your question because I usually people ask us, oh, what is the meaning behind that name and stuff. You're like, nah, who's amazing? Who's Cannonball? Love it.
Yeah, tell me.
I think all three are great adjectives. I would not mind any one of them. Like
My
amazing is amazing. Flower is a beautiful flower, and cannonball is like on fire. You just go onward and upward, and you're just moving, lighting fire. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can
so
safely say,
yeah.
and I might be speaking for the three of us, that the three of us change those positions as needed. So
Mm,
when someone needs more encouragement, someone needs more,
Mm.
feistiness, or someone needs to be gentle, the three of us are so in sync that we just
mm.
interchange being amazing, being cannonball-y, and being flowery. So I reckon that. What do you guys think?
That's a
No,
very
no, eh,
sweet
no, no,
answer.
no, no. I know what Crew's saying. She's sharing the glory.
No, we are the glory. Oh my god.
Yeah, but
All right.
that's true.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Okay, now one of you can pitch into the audience about the Fringe Festival and where it's going on and where they can buy your tickets quickly.
True. Do you want to do that?
All right, guys, if you've had fun watching us, you're going to have double the fun and triple the fun really watching us online at our show because it's pre-recorded, so we're way funnier. So we can crack jokes on cue over there. Um, Tune in. I've sent the link on the private chat. Buy a ticket there. Some people have complained it's not easy, but trust me, it's easy. You can just buy a ticket. There's a free ticket available. So if you want to try before you buy, you watch us, and then if you like what you see, just you can buy another ticket to give us money if you like. But otherwise, we'd just be happy if you watch it, and then if you like it, write a review. If you don't like it, keep it to yourself.
And the link will be there 17th, 10 p.m. So don't forget to watch it by then.
And
After
if
that,
you're in India, it'll probably be only valid till 4 p.m. Sunday. So make your weekend worth it. Watch the amazing Cannonball Flower. I mean, you don't get to see two Indian girls and a white guy all the time, so make the most of it.
Yeah.
All right. It was so much fun talking to you guys. This was it with with the amazing Cannonball Flower. Thank you, Artie and James, for coming online with the Indian Sun. And we hope to talk to you again. And we hope once the lockdown starts, your gigs keep coming. Thank
yeah.
you.
Thanks, Andrea. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you so much.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.